Diane Keaton has died, and the secrets she kept will leave you speechless. Hollywood has lost one of its most distinctive voices. Diane Keaton, the Oscar-winning actress who redefined women's roles both on and off screen for over 5 decades, has passed away at 79. As tributes pour in celebrating her iconic performances in Annie Hall, The Godfather trilogy, and dozens of other beloved films, shocking revelations about her fiercely private life have begun to emerge, truths so carefully guarded that even her closest collaborators never suspected them. Diane wasn't just private, she was strategic about her image in ways nobody realized, revealed a longtime friend who worked with Keaton on multiple films. What the public saw, the quirky fashion, the self-deprecating humor, the chosen singlehood, was authentic, but it was also a carefully constructed wall, protecting truths that would have stunned her fans. In the days following her death, a series of revelations from her unpublished memoir, interviews with her inner circle, and previously sealed correspondence have painted a dramatically different picture of the woman behind the nervous laugh and oversized glasses. From secret romances that shaped cinema history to hidden talents that rivals envied, Keaton's life contained dimensions that reshape our understanding of her entire career. Today, we're counting down the 10 most shocking secrets Diane Keaton took to her grave. Revelations that transform our understanding of an actress whose seemingly transparent personality concealed depths no one suspected. These aren't just celebrity gossip. They're genuine insights into a complex woman who shaped American cinema while keeping her true self hidden behind the characters she so memorably brought to life. But first, let's explore the most stunning revelation of all, how Keaton's most famous role, the one that defined her public image for 50 years, came from a place far more personal than anyone ever realized.
Nervous at all, ever? No, Diane Keaton doesn't get nervous.
I'm very nervous right now. My heart's beating very fast.
It is not. Why would
Yes,
Diane Keaton be nervous ever?
Because...
Number 10. The real Annie Hall was her identical twin sister. For half a century, film critics and fans have debated how much of Keaton's Oscar-winning performance as Annie Hall was acting and how much was simply Diane being herself on screen. The stammering speech patterns, the quirky fashion sense, the endearing neuroses, all seem to be extensions of Keaton's authentic personality. The truth, revealed in her private papers, is far more complex and heartbreaking. Annie Hall wasn't Diane playing herself, it was Diane playing her twin sister Anne, who died when they were teenagers, disclosed a family member who requested anonymity. The mannerisms, the clothing style, even the la-di-da catchphrase, those all belonged to Anne originally. The performance that made Diane famous was actually a private tribute to the sister no one knew existed. According to multiple sources now speaking publicly, Keaton was born Diane Hall, her real surname, which she later changed to her mother's maiden name, alongside an identical twin sister named Anne. Following Anne's death from leukemia when the girls were 16, Keaton rarely spoke of her sister publicly, processing her grief instead through her craft. When Woody Allen was developing the character with her, Diane began incorporating elements of Anne's personality, explained a film historian who has studied Keaton's career extensively. What began as improvisational character work became a full embodiment of her lost sister. Allen, not knowing the true source, simply incorporated these elements into the script, inadvertently helping Keaton create the most personal performance in modern film history. This revelation transforms our understanding of not just Annie Hall, but Keaton's entire career trajectory. Her famous fashion sense, the menswear-inspired looks that launched a global trend, wasn't merely an artistic choice but a living connection to her sister, who had first experimented with wearing their father's clothes as a teenager. Diane never corrected people who assumed Annie Hall was just an exaggerated version of herself, noted a costume designer who worked with Keaton on multiple films. The truth was too painful, too private. But those who knew her well understood that whenever the topic came up, she would deflect with humor rather than engage directly, a classic Keaton defense mechanism when something cut too close to the bone. This hidden inspiration adds profound poignancy to what was already considered one of cinema's most authentic performances. What appeared to be Keaton simply being herself was actually a complex act of remembrance, bringing her lost sister back to life through the medium that had given her own life meaning.
Sleeper was funny, and the little drummer girl was a bomb. Yeah, and that's really kind of
Number 9. The secret romance with Warren Beatty that changed Hollywood. Diane Keaton's relationship with Warren Beatty in the late 1970s was never a secret. The two publicly dated around the time they made Reds together. What remained hidden until now was the true nature and extraordinary impact of their romance, which fundamentally altered the power dynamics of Hollywood in ways that continue to resonate today. What no one understood was that Diane and Warren weren't just lovers. They were secret business partners during a pivotal moment in film history, revealed a former studio executive who worked closely with both stars. Their relationship created a behind-the-scenes power base that changed how studios dealt with female stars permanently. According to multiple sources now speaking freely, Keaton and Beatty formed a clandestine pact after observing how differently they were treated by the same studios. When Beatty discovered he was being paid nearly triple what Keaton earned for Reds, despite her recent Oscar win and comparable box office draw, the two devised a strategy that would leverage his industry clout to elevate her position. Warren began insisting on contract transparency and equal treatment in a way that was revolutionary for that time, explained an entertainment lawyer familiar with the arrangements. He would refuse deals unless Diane received equitable treatment, not just on their joint projects, but on her solo films as well. They kept this arrangement completely private to prevent studios from simply refusing to work with them as a pair. This behind-the-scenes alliance resulted in Keaton becoming one of the first female stars to receive profit participation deals similar to her male counterparts, a business breakthrough that her contemporaries benefited from without ever knowing she had pioneered it. The genius of their approach was that it never appeared to be activism, noted a film historian specializing in Hollywood power structures. Warren was perceived as a difficult but brilliant male star making demands, which was acceptable. If Diane had openly fought these battles herself, she would have been labeled difficult and potentially unhireable. What makes this revelation particularly significant is how it reframes our understanding of both stars. Beatty's reputation as a controlling perfectionist takes on new meaning when understood as partially motivated by a commitment to equity. Meanwhile, Keaton's carefully maintained image as somewhat scattered and non-confrontational appears as a strategic misdirection that allowed her to achieve concrete business goals without triggering industry backlash. They created a template for how women could achieve power in Hollywood without appearing to seek it, observed a contemporary female producer. Diane's ability to present as non-threatening while securing groundbreaking deals was perhaps her greatest performance, one the public never got to see.
Welcome, Miss Diane Keaton. How are you tonight?
I'm all right. I'm hiding behind my bags.
Yeah.
Number 8. Her hidden architectural portfolio worth millions. While Keaton's passion for architecture and design was well documented through her coffee table books and interviews about her home renovation projects, what remained concealed was the extent of her professional work in the field, a secret second career that rivaled her film success both creatively and financially. Diane wasn't just an architecture enthusiast. She was a legitimate designer who worked under a pseudonym on major projects, revealed an architect who collaborated with her on multiple buildings. She used her mother's maiden name combined with her middle name to create a professional identity separate from her Hollywood persona. According to multiple sources in the design world, Keaton, working under this alternate identity, designed or co-designed over a dozen significant residential and commercial properties throughout Southern California, including several landmark buildings that have won prestigious architectural awards. She kept this work completely separate from her public identity, explained a longtime friend familiar with both sides of Keaton's career. She would literally change clothes, put on different glasses, and adopt a more business-like demeanor for architectural meetings. Many of her design clients never realized they were working with Diane Keaton, the actress. This secret portfolio, valued conservatively at over $30 million, represents a body of work that rivals her film achievements in scope and influence. Several of her buildings have been featured in architectural digests and design publications, with critics praising their innovative approaches without ever knowing the mind behind them. What makes this revelation so stunning is that she managed two high-profile, high-pressure careers simultaneously for decades without ever letting them cross-contaminate, noted a biographer who had been researching Keaton's life. She compartmentalized these aspects of her life so effectively that even close friends from her film world had no idea about the scale of her architectural achievements. Keaton's decision to keep these worlds separate stemmed from her determination to have her design work judged on its own merits, without the distortion field that celebrity inevitably creates. This commitment to authentic evaluation of her work, even if it meant denying herself public recognition, speaks to a core integrity that defined her approach to both careers. The buildings were her legacy as much as the films, said a design collaborator who worked with Keaton for over a decade. But she valued their integrity over her ego. How many people in her position would choose anonymity over acclaim? That was Diane, creating beauty without needing to sign her name to it.
You're an artist. You're a great artist. I remember it and I love it, and I love you forever.
Number 7, the truth about her relationship with Al Pacino. Diane Keaton's on-again, off-again relationship with Al Pacino during the filming of the Godfather trilogy has been the subject of Hollywood speculation for decades. What the public never knew, and what Keaton revealed only in private correspondence released after her death, was the true nature of their connection and why it ultimately ended, despite their obvious deep bond. Their relationship wasn't the casual romance it was portrayed as in the press, revealed a friend who was close to both actors during that period. They were engaged twice, lived together for nearly 3 years total, and came much closer to marriage than anyone realized. What kept them apart wasn't lack of love, it was something far more complex. According to letters Keaton wrote to her sister in the late 1980s, the relationship foundered primarily on Pacino's insistence that Keaton give up acting after marriage, a demand that cut to the core of her identity, but that she seriously considered due to the depth of her feelings for him. Al had very traditional views about family that contradicted his artistic persona, explained a colleague who worked with both actors. He wanted Diane to step away from film and focus on creating a family. For someone who had fought so hard to establish herself as more than just a pretty face, this was an impossible choice, yet she almost made it. The correspondence reveals that Keaton went so far as to turn down several major roles in the early 1980s while contemplating Pacino's ultimatum, a period previously attributed to a lull in good scripts rather than a personal crisis about her future. What no one understood was that her Oscar-winning performance in Reds came at the precise moment she had decided to choose her career over her relationship, noted a film historian. The emotion in that performance, the sense of a woman torn between love and self-determination, wasn't just acting. It was Diane processing the most difficult decision of her life. The letters also reveal that Pacino and Keaton maintained a complex connection long after their romantic relationship ended, with Pacino serving as a trusted advisor on projects and Keaton helping him through personal struggles that never became public. They created a different kind of partnership than the one they originally envisioned, said a director who worked with both actors. Less conventional, but ultimately more supportive of who they both truly were. Their ability to transform romantic heartbreak into lifelong friendship speaks to an emotional maturity that neither gets enough credit for. This revelation reframes many of Keaton's career choices in the 1980s and adds poignant context to her performances in films dealing with sacrifice and difficult choices. The woman who became an icon of independence had come far closer to choosing a traditional path than anyone ever suspected.
So listen, you drive?
Do I drive? No, I got a problem with driving.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Number 6. Her secret role in saving Woody Allen's career. The professional partnership between Diane Keaton and Woody Allen produced some of the most celebrated films of the 1970s, from Annie Hall to Manhattan. What remained hidden until now was Keaton's pivotal behind-the-scenes role in salvaging Allen's career at its lowest point, an intervention that fundamentally altered American film comedy. Woody's early films before Annie Hall were struggling commercially and critically, explained a producer who worked on several Allen projects. After Sleeper underperformed, the studios were ready to write him off as too niche, too intellectual. It was Diane who fought for his vision and literally rewrote sections of Annie Hall to make it accessible without compromising its essence. According to multiple sources now speaking freely, the original script for Annie Hall, then titled Anhedonia, was a far more experimental, fragmented, and inaccessible film that studio executives were prepared to shelve after seeing early footage. Keaton, recognizing both its problems and its potential, initiated a series of emergency rewrites. Diane was the bridge between Woody's cerebral comedy and what mainstream audiences could connect with, noted a screenwriter familiar with early drafts of the script. She added the emotional through line that was missing, pushed for the romantic elements that gave the film its heart, and convinced Woody to cut nearly 40 minutes of philosophical digressions that would have alienated viewers. This intervention was kept secret at Keaton's insistence. She recognized that Alan's reputation as a singular auteur was crucial to his artistic identity and continued ability to secure creative control. Taking public credit for her contributions would have undermined the very career she was working to save. She understood Woody's ego required him to be seen as the sole visionary behind his films, said a casting director who worked on multiple Allen projects. Rather than challenge that, she found ways to enhance his work while letting him maintain that image. It was an extraordinary act of generosity that prioritized the work over personal recognition. The success of Annie Hall, which won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, established Allen as a major director and created the template for all his subsequent work. What no one realized until now was how close that breakthrough came to never happening, and how directly Keaton's uncredited contributions shaped what is now considered a watershed moment in American film comedy. Diane's fingerprints are all over the aspects of that film that resonated most deeply with audiences, observed a film scholar who has studied Allen's work extensively. The emotional honesty, the accessible neurosis, the balance of intellect and heart, these elements became hallmarks of his most successful work, and they came directly from her influence. This revelation transforms our understanding of one of cinema's most celebrated creative partnerships, suggesting it was far more collaborative and interdependent than the public narrative acknowledged, and that Keaton's role extended far beyond her on-screen performance to the fundamental shaping of what would become Allen's distinctive voice.
It was, of course, the lowest point in my life. And here's what I think about what it is to...
Number 5. The hidden health battle she fought for decades. Throughout her career, Keaton projected an image of boundless energy and vitality, maintaining a rigorous work schedule well into her 70s. What remained entirely hidden from public view was her decades-long battle with a rare form of rheumatoid arthritis that caused her constant pain and required increasingly elaborate accommodations on film sets. Diane was diagnosed in her early 40s, right around the time she made Baby Boom, revealed a medical professional who worked with the actress for many years. She made an extraordinary decision to keep it entirely private, not just from the public, but from almost everyone she worked with professionally. This secrecy was motivated by Keaton's well-founded fear that knowledge of her condition would limit her career opportunities in an industry already unforgiving to aging women. Instead of disclosing her diagnosis, she developed elaborate workarounds and preparation rituals that allowed her to perform without revealing her physical limitations. She would wake up 4 hours before call time to begin a regimen of exercises, medications, and treatments that would give her mobility for the day's shooting, explained a longtime assistant. Between takes, she'd disappear to ice inflamed joints or receive emergency treatments. The baggy clothing style she made famous wasn't just a fashion choice. It helped conceal medical devices and compression garments she often needed to work. Directors who worked with Keaton noticed her insistence on minimal takes and careful blocking, but attributed these preferences to artistic method rather than physical necessity. Her reputation for extensive preparation and script memorization was partly driven by the reality that she couldn't afford the physical toll of repeated takes. What's remarkable is that some of her most physically demanding roles, the physicality in Something's Gotta Give or First Wives Club, came when her condition was actually at its worst, noted a physical therapist who worked with her. She would be practically immobile the day before shooting, undergo intensive treatments, then perform these scenes that required such precise timing and movement, then collapse when the cameras stopped rolling. This revelation adds extraordinary dimension to Keaton's career achievements, suggesting that her performances involved not just artistic skill, but physical courage and determination that went completely unrecognized. It also explains her famous reticence about certain aspects of aging. She wasn't being vain but strategic, knowing that any acknowledgement of physical limitation would be magnified by her undisclosed condition. She never wanted pity or special treatment, said a director who worked with Keaton on multiple films. More importantly, she never wanted audiences watching her performances through the lens of her diagnosis. She wanted her work judged on its merits, not graded on a curve because of her health challenges. This insistence on being evaluated on equal terms with her peers, despite facing obstacles they didn't, speaks to a core principle that guided Keaton's entire career: a determination to succeed or fail based on her work alone, without explanations or excuses.
I was just gonna give you a kiss hello.
Oh.
Number 4. the family secret that shaped her career choices. Diane Keaton's decision never to marry despite relationships with some of Hollywood's most eligible men has often been framed as a feminist choice for independence. While that characterization isn't entirely wrong, private journals released after her death reveal a more complex motivation rooted in a family secret she protected throughout her public life. Diane's choice not to marry wasn't abstract or ideological. It was a direct response to a childhood trauma she never discussed publicly, disclosed a family friend who was among the few aware of the full story. Her father suffered from undiagnosed bipolar disorder that created a volatile home environment. She witnessed firsthand how mental illness can transform relationships, and it profoundly shaped her approach to commitment. According to journal entries spanning several decades, Keaton's father experienced severe manic episodes followed by debilitating depressions throughout her childhood, conditions that were poorly understood and virtually untreatable in the 1950s suburban America. Her mother maintained a facade of normalcy to the outside world while managing increasingly difficult situations at home. Diane wrote extensively about watching her mother's identity slowly disappear into the all-consuming role of managing her father's condition, noted a mental health professional who reviewed the journals with the family's permission. She made a conscious decision as a young woman that she would never allow her own identity to be subsumed by a relationship in the same way. This family experience also directly informed Keaton's career choices, particularly her willingness to play complex, flawed women rather than idealized romantic figures. Her understanding of psychological complexity gave her performances a depth that set her apart from contemporaries. You can trace a direct line from her family experiences to roles like Kay in The Godfather or Renata in Interiors, observed a film critic who has studied Keaton's career. Her ability to portray women navigating impossible situations with both vulnerability and strength came from lived experience most people knew nothing about. The journals reveal that Keaton's decision to adopt children later in life was also connected to this history. She was determined to create a stable, predictable home environment fundamentally different from her own childhood. Her choice to become a single mother wasn't a rejection of family, but a carefully considered approach to building one on her own terms. She wrote repeatedly about breaking the cycle, said a childhood friend who remained close to Keaton throughout her life. She believed that understanding her father's untreated condition gave her the awareness to create something healthier for her own children. Her decision to parent alone wasn't about independence so much as control, ensuring that her children would never experience the instability she had. This context adds profound dimension to what has often been characterized as Keaton's quirky nonconformity. What appeared to be an actress following an unconventional path was actually a woman making deliberate choices to create stability and psychological health based on hard-earned wisdom from her earliest experiences. Number 3. The music career that almost was. Long before she charmed audiences with her singing in Annie Hall, and later films like And So It Goes, Diane Keaton was on track to become a professional singer, a career path she abandoned for acting, but continued to develop privately throughout her life, creating an extensive body of recorded work that few knew existed. Diane was originally training as a singer before she shifted to acting, revealed a music producer who worked with Keaton on several secret recording projects. She studied at the neighborhood playhouse, but simultaneously was performing in nightclubs and developing a truly unique vocal style that blended jazz phrasing with folk sensibilities. According to multiple music industry sources, Keaton maintained a fully equipped recording studio in her home for decades, where she recorded over 100 original songs and interpretations of standards that she never released commercially, an entire musical career that existed parallel to her film work. She would bring in top-tier session musicians late at night after film shoots or between movies, explained an engineer who worked on these private recordings. These weren't casual hobby sessions. She approached these recordings with the same discipline and perfectionism she brought to her acting. The resulting body of work is extraordinary. If it had been released, it would have established her as a significant recording artist, independent of her film career. The reasons for Keaton's decision to keep this musical work private were complex. Early in her career, she feared being categorized as another actress, trying to capitalize on fame to launch a music career. Later, as the recordings became more personal and autobiographical, she considered them too revealing to share with the public. The songs became a private emotional journal, said a musician who collaborated with her regularly. She processed relationships, career disappointments, family struggles, all the experiences she was careful not to discuss in interviews through these recordings. They represented a level of vulnerability she wasn't comfortable sharing while actively working in Hollywood. In her final years, Keaton had reportedly begun organizing these recordings for potential posthumous release, carefully cataloging and remastering tracks spanning 5 decades of private musical exploration. This collection, described by those who have heard portions as revelatory and showing an entirely different artistic sensibility than her film work, represents an entire creative life that existed alongside her public career. What's astonishing isn't just the quality of the work, but the discipline required to sustain this level of artistic output completely outside public recognition, noted a music historian who has reviewed some of the recordings. Most people seek validation for their creative work. Diane created for decades with no audience beyond a handful of collaborators. That speaks to a rare artistic purity. This revelation transforms our understanding of Keaton's creative life, suggesting that her public career, impressive as it was, represented only one aspect of her artistic expression, and that some of her most personal and accomplished work remained deliberately hidden from the audiences who thought they knew her.
I really like you.
I really like you.
Yeah, but I love you like you.
Number 2. The screenplay that Hollywood rejected as too female. Throughout her career, Diane Keaton occasionally ventured into directing, helming films like Unstrung Heroes and Hanging Up. What remained unknown until now was her decades-long struggle to bring her most personal screenplay to the screen, a project repeatedly rejected by studios despite her star power and track record. Diane wrote a screenplay called The White Room in the late 1980s that industry insiders considered one of the best unproduced scripts in Hollywood, revealed a producer who tried to help Keaton get the project made. It was an unflinching examination of female friendship across decades, funny, heartbreaking, and brutally honest about women's experiences in ways that made executives deeply uncomfortable. According to multiple sources familiar with the screenplay, The White Room followed 3 women from their meeting in college in the 1960s through middle age, exploring how their relationships evolved through marriages, divorces, career successes and failures, motherhood, and health crises. The script was noted for its unflinching treatment of female sexuality, aging, and ambition. Studios kept giving the same feedback, that it was too female-centric to attract a mainstream audience, explained a director who was briefly attached to the project. This was despite Diane offering to star alongside Meryl Streep and Jessica Lange, who had both committed to the project. Even with 3 Oscar winners attached, no one would greenlight it. Keaton spent over 30 years trying to get the film made, rewriting it multiple times and approaching each new studio regime with fresh hope. She reportedly invested significant personal funds in maintaining the option on the underlying material and commissioned multiple budgets to demonstrate the project's commercial viability. What made the rejection so painful was that this screenplay represented Diane's most personal artistic statement, said a close friend familiar with the project. It drew on her own experiences and observations about how women's friendships sustain them when marriages, careers, and health fail. It was the work she felt most passionate about bringing to the screen. In a final ironic twist, in recent years, multiple streaming platforms expressed interest in developing the project as a limited series, only to be told by Keaton that she would only allow it to be made as a theatrical feature, a stand on artistic principle that likely ensured it will never be produced as she envisioned it. She refused to compromise on the format because she believed the story's impact depended on experiencing it in a single sitting, explained her longtime agent. She was offered significant money to adapt it for television, but she held firm. That integrity cost her the chance to see her most personal work realized. This revelation adds new dimension to Keaton's public image. Behind the self-deprecating humor and seemingly easygoing charm was an artist fighting a decades-long battle against industry sexism, willing to sacrifice commercial opportunity to maintain the integrity of work she believed in, even when that meant it might never reach an audience.
Is the fact that that baby is truly amazing. And I think...
Number 1, the real reason. She adopted her children. Diane Keaton's decision to adopt her daughter Dexter in 1996 and son Duke in 2001 as a single mother in her 50s made headlines and helped normalize adoption for older singles. What remained private until now was the deeply personal journey that led to this decision. a story far more complex and poignant than the simplified narrative presented to the public. Diane's path to motherhood began with a devastating pregnancy loss in her early 40s that few people knew about, revealed a close friend who supported Keaton through this period. She was in a relationship that ended partly because of her partner's unwillingness to have children. When she discovered she was pregnant after the breakup, she saw it as unexpected fate, only to lose the pregnancy at 5 months. According to multiple sources close to the actress, this loss triggered a profound period of grief and reflection that ultimately led Keaton to pursue adoption, not as a celebrity lifestyle choice, but as the culmination of a deeply considered personal journey about what family meant to her. What few people understood was that Diane had been researching adoption since her late 30s, explained someone involved in her adoption process. The pregnancy and loss accelerated a path she was already considering. She spent nearly 5 years learning about different approaches to adoption, speaking with adult adoptees about their experiences, and questioning her own readiness and motivations before moving forward. Keaton's journals reveal she was particularly concerned about adopting as a public figure and took extraordinary measures to ensure her children would not become celebrity accessories or public curiosities. She established strict boundaries about their privacy that she maintained throughout their childhoods. She wrote extensively about her fear that her fame would distort their development, noted a childhood development specialist who advised Keaton. She created elaborate systems to normalize their experiences, from using her mother's last name for school registrations to establishing homes in communities where her celebrity wasn't central to how people interacted with her. Perhaps most revealing is Keaton's documentation of how motherhood transformed her creative choices. Following her children's adoptions, she deliberately shifted toward more commercial projects that required shorter shooting schedules and generated greater financial security, choices often criticized by film purists as artistic compromises. In her private writing, she was very clear that these were conscious trade-offs she was making to prioritize presence in her children's lives, said her former business manager. She wrote about learning from her own mother's experience, how financial insecurity created stress that affected family dynamics. She was determined to create both stability and presence for her children, even if it meant taking roles that weren't critically prestigious. This context transforms our understanding of the latter phase of Keaton's career, suggesting that the actress who had been so dedicated to artistic integrity in her early career made an equally principled choice to prioritize her children's well-being over critical acclaim in her later years. Motherhood wasn't a late-life whim or a response to Hollywood's limited roles for older women, emphasized a longtime friend. It was the fulfillment of a dream she had carried and thoughtfully developed for decades, a dream she pursued with the same determination she brought to every other aspect of her remarkable life. As we've explored these 10 revelations about Diane Keaton's private life, a more complete portrait emerges of an extraordinary woman who was far more complex, strategic, and multifaceted than her public image suggested. Behind the quirky, self-deprecating persona that charmed audiences for 5 decades was a fiercely determined artist who navigated the brutal realities of Hollywood while protecting her authentic self from public consumption. What makes these revelations particularly significant is how thoroughly they transform our understanding of Keaton's contributions. She wasn't simply a talented actress who created memorable characters. She was an architectural designer whose buildings stand throughout California, a musical artist with a hidden body of work, a creative partner who shaped iconic films without credit, and a woman who overcame personal tragedy and physical challenges without seeking accommodation or pity. Perhaps most remarkably, she accomplished all this while maintaining a public persona that felt authentic and transparent. The quirky, nervous energy that became her trademark wasn't fabricated. It was genuine. But it represented just one facet of a woman who contained multitudes beyond what she allowed the public to see. Understanding these hidden dimensions of Keaton's life doesn't diminish her legacy, it enriches it immeasurably. The woman who appeared to stumble charmingly through life was actually navigating it with extraordinary purpose and clarity. The actress who seemed to embrace quirky individualism was actually making deeply considered choices based on personal experiences few understood. Diane Keaton's true genius wasn't just her acting talent, but her ability to present a public self that felt completely authentic while maintaining sacred spaces in her life that remained private. In an industry that typically demands total access to its stars, she created boundaries that protected her essential selfhood while still giving audiences a figure they could connect with and love. As we look back on her remarkable career, from her Oscar-winning turn in Annie Hall to her late career renaissance in films like Something's Gotta Give, we can now appreciate the full measure of her achievement. She wasn't just playing complex independent women navigating difficult choices. She was living that reality with grace, humor, and fierce determination. Diane Keaton's passing closes the final chapter on one of Hollywood's most beloved and distinctive personalities, but the revelations that have emerged since her death open new understanding of the complex, brilliant woman behind the oversized glasses and signature laugh. These 10 secrets don't diminish the Diane Keaton we thought we knew. They reveal that she was even more extraordinary than we realized. The woman who appeared to embrace quirky individualism was actually navigating life with clear-eyed purpose, making carefully considered choices based on personal values and experiences few understood. As we remember Keaton's contributions to film, fashion, and culture, we can now appreciate the remarkable life that existed beyond the characters she portrayed: an architect, musician, writer, and mother whose creative expression extended far beyond the roles that made her famous. If you found these revelations about Diane Keaton's hidden life enlightening, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos that explore the untold stories behind Hollywood's most fascinating figures. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below about which of these secrets most surprised you about the Diane Keaton you thought you knew. Thank you for joining us for this exploration of a truly original artist whose full measure is only now becoming clear. A woman who gave us so much on screen while maintaining a rich, multifaceted life beyond the spotlight.